Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's Indie Artist Music Hustle with Blind Intelligence. I'm your host, Miss Roni, where I always seek to give you exquisite cranial repertoire. This week, we have a very special guest. We have Miss Lindsey Ferguson. Say hello to everyone.
Thank you, Roni. Hi.
How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I've been promoting the release of my new album, Being a Girl, this past weekend, and so I've been kind of on the computer or on my phone pretty much nonstop for the past several days. So getting a little overwhelmed, but happy.
Okay. Well, what we're going to do is we're going to start out with letting you tell everyone a little bit about yourself.
Sounds great. So I'm a 26-year-old singer-songwriter. I live in Los Angeles with my fiance, Jordan. He and I are also in a band called Ned and Wendy the Band. I started making music for fun when I was like 11 years old. I've been writing songs for as long as I can remember. And after I graduated from college, I moved to New York City, where I got my master's in music business at NYU. And while I was doing that, I was working on some of the songs that are on the album that just came out. And that was actually how I connected with my now fiance. And then during quarantine, decided to move to Los Angeles to live with him and start our band. And it's just been sort of a like musical whirlwind for the past, 2 years or so, and I'm really excited to have put out, my first album after all of that. I feel really good about it.
Okay. So tell me this. I interviewed another artist once, and she told me that she felt like Los Angeles was very congested and people trying to make it in different aspects of the entertainment industry. So do you think coming from New York, do you think that between both places, which place is the best place for a new artist to start their career?
Ooh, okay. I think in part it depends on the kind of music that you're making. And I mean, I'm honestly not entirely sure right now what kind of genres or sounds would work best in what city, but I know at different times, you've had more of like an underground, punk scene in New York, and meanwhile you've got sort of like, the hippie music, and then moving forward, then you have more of like a hip hop, sound in LA with like indie in New York. So I think there is some, sound specificities, but I guess what I've found is that I think because there is a little more space in LA. There's still a ton of people and we're all kind of trying to do the same thing, but like physically there's more space. When you do come into contact with people, I think there's more time that people put into getting to know each other, whereas in New York, everything's very crowded. There's people all around. You're moving at a much faster pace. So sometimes I think personal connection, which can also be a creative connection, can be, missed in that city. And I think for me, that's been the biggest like positive of living in LA, has just been that people take more time to connect with each other. And that's been really helpful as an artist.
Okay. So tell me this. I know you told me that you started doing music as a hobby when you were 11 and that you moved to LA to be in a band. So with this being your first project, have you ever done anything else as a solo artist outside of a band, or is being in a band a brand new thing for you?
Yeah, I've as a solo artist, I've released several singles before this album. I recorded a live album when I was in London a couple years ago, and I've played live at a couple of small venues, specifically in New York. I've played at like Pianos in Rockwood and Arlene's Grocery, which are all kind of like East Village spots for young artists. But this is my first time having moved to LA. This is my first time being a part of a band, and that's an entirely new experience, because I think before I was in a band, making music felt more like just something I've always done, and not quite a hobby. It's more, a part of me than that. But now being in a band, there's a little bit more intention, a little more planning, working with another artist, collaborating. It's not just the stuff that just comes out of me on a regular basis. It's more of a practice, and it's like a sport. I'm not just really, I'm not just someone who happens to be good at, dribbling a basketball when I'm playing around with it. Now it's like I have to practice the drills. I have to figure out the offense and the defense, and I think that's been really good for me as an artist.
Tell me, how do you think your background in music business has helped you as an artist?
Well, I mean...
Well, wait a minute. Let me back up. Help you as in not making some common mistakes that you see other new artists make. Yeah.
It's been very, very helpful in that way. So again, I just released my first big album as a solo artist, and I've done all of the marketing for it, all of the promotional content, all of the outreach, and the courses that I took in my master's program really helped me with kind of like the first steps, figuring out what are all the outlets that I can send my music out into, what are areas that I hadn't thought about before, like PR. I hadn't thought about press releases when I was releasing my singles whenever I was younger, and so I started looking into pitching to music blogs, which led me to this really cool site called Muso Soup. I don't know if you've heard of it. I have a feeling it's probably much more common than I ever realized. But what?
There's several of them.
Oh, yeah. Maybe I should try a couple more. But looking into something like that was really helpful. Knowing it's not just about posting on my own social media. And then, distribution can be a complicated thing, figuring out how to get your royalties, making sure you're also collecting publishing royalties and not just the recording royalties. It's almost impossible to make any money as a musician anymore unless you're playing a lot of live shows. So to make sure that you're getting revenue from all possible streams is really important. Don't forget about your
merch sales.
What'd you say?
Don't forget about your merch sales.
Yes. Well, I did. I made merchandise. I used Shopify to set up an online merchandise store, and that's been helpful. So yeah, it's been fun. kind of thinking strategically and coming up with like an overall creative plan for how to get music out there, how I want to be represented as an artist, and also just like creating the artwork around the album has been really fun.
Tell me a little bit more about your album.
So the album started when I was living in New York City. I was getting my master's degree. I was a degree. I was a single woman doing the online dating thing, having a hard time, and eventually COVID. So you get in the album to kind of travel with me back home to live with my parents. I actually finished my master's degree online. I had my graduation ceremony I experienced while sitting in my childhood bed by myself. I remember I asked my dad if he wanted to watch, and he asked how long it was, and I told him, and he was like, that's okay. So I just sat in my room by myself while I graduated from my master's program and finished school. I did throw my little hat up in there. We got hats, so that was good. So during that time that I was at home, I kept writing, and I had never tried to produce any of my own music before. I had always sought other producers to work with, or thought that songs that I recorded on my own weren't, of the quality of music that I could actually release. So I invested in a microphone and a DAW, and I got Logic, and I started trying to produce my own music. And at that time, I was in touch with a producer who I had worked with remotely before, and over FaceTime and Zoom, he started giving me kind of lessons in how to produce, and we ended up falling in love. And so that's all in the album. And so then from my parents' house, I moved to Los Angeles, where that producer was already living, and he and I moved into a house together. And the final several songs of the album are songs that I wrote and recorded and produced or co-produced with my fiance from our house that we're in now in Los Feliz. So you get sort of this, full story, not the full story of my life, of course, but kind of a story of a young woman who's, dealing with a lot of the, daily struggles that we deal with. And, and then of course the non-daily struggles like COVID, but of course we all deal with that too. And I think, it's such a long album because I'd been recording these songs not knowing how I would release them. But when there was finally a feeling of resolution in my own life, that's whenever I knew it was ready to go out into the world. So, it's a journey, the album.
So you would say that the album is more, I know you said it's telling a story, but I would say more of a personal spotlight into your life.
Yeah, it's a very intimate album. It's very personal, but I do think that because it gets so specific and so personal, that there are actually really kind of like tangible experiences and feelings that listeners can connect with.
Are there any songs that you cut from the album?
Well, there are so many songs that I have written over the last 4 years, and a lot of them, the majority of the songs that I've made are not in the album.
Talking about all the songs that you made, but you know how when you go through all of the songs and you be like, okay, this made the cut for the album. Then we're gonna have a final cut, and you come to the final cut and be like, yeah. So were there any songs that you had to cut from the album?
I'm trying to think. Once I decided I was certain that I wanted to release it as an album, and not just break it up into smaller EPs. And I put the album together. I think everything that I included in the first run is still on there.
Okay. Tell me about social media.
Yeah.
I have heard it been called a beast. I have heard it been called time consuming, and people just get other people to do it. What is your personal take on social media as being an artist?
It's honestly it's a large part of the reason why I put off committing fully to being an artist for as long as I did.
Why?
I mean, I think when I was in grad school, especially because it was a music business program, so many of the professors were, talking about music from, the business perspective, from, making money, from data, and everything was social media. They need to have this many followers and this many likes, and they need to have a brand and look this way and this aesthetic. And I was so not into that. And I felt really, really disheartened by that, by this idea that, okay, well, if I want to be a music artist, then I have to commit all my time to social media, but I really just want to make music. And I think recently, I mean, it has, for the past, month, that's absolutely been the case. I have been completely consumed by social media. And, I'm really excited for the day when I can hire someone to do it for me. But right now, I think now that I am putting myself out there as an artist, I want to make sure that the foundation of, these sites where you're seeing who I am, how I'm presenting myself, I want to make sure that I have control over that, and that, what is being put out into the world is really coming from me. And then at some point, I can hand it off with something that's already, kind of in the shape that I'm looking for, and say, yeah, just continue with this. And yeah, I just got a TikTok like 5 days ago. I put that off for a really long time because I also I'm very like sensitive to noises and things, and I find TikTok to be incredibly overstimulating, and I hate how if I open it, it just starts playing immediately.
That in your settings.
I can fix that.
Yes.
I'm learning so much. I gotta fix that because it seems like a kind of unavoidable necessity as far as like promoting yourself as an independent artist. But I also hate being on it.
Okay, well, I thank you for coming. I want you to tell everybody your social media handles, how they can find you, the name of your album, your latest single, anything else that you would want to tell us about Lindsey.
Okay, so I am on Instagram at LindseyBinsey95.
Spell it.
LINDSEYBINSEY_ No, there's no underscore. I'm sorry. Just go straight to the 95. I'm too much social media. There's too many different things. You can find my band on Instagram at Ned and Wendy _ the band. And that's NEDANDWENDY _ the band. I'm on TikTok as Lindsey Ferguson Music, I think. And I'm also on Facebook as Lindsey Ferguson. You can find my music on your preferred streaming platform. My newest album is called Being a Girl. And I'm also on YouTube as Lindsey Ferguson Music. And I guess all I would like to leave you with is I I really do implore you to listen to the album. I think that any listener will be able to find something to connect with in it. And if nothing else, it is an hour of getting some sort of understanding of what it means to be a girl.
You heard her. You can find her on all streaming platforms. You can find her at Lindsey Ferguson Music on YouTube, Facebook, and her Twitter. And I'm going to assume Instagram. You can find us on the podcast, on all your podcasting preferred podcasting platforms. Find us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and on the website at www.blonde-intelligence.com. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Bye.